This little girl is really too scary. She handed a picture to the stranger on the way. After that, that stranger died tragically on the street. Time went back to a few minutes ago, the girl was sitting on the street drawing. After that, she seemed to feel something, she frowned, her expression becoming unsightly. Next, she started to quickly paint on the paper. She handed the picture to a strange man across the street, the man looking at the painting, on which it was his image. But this picture looks quite bloody, he doesn't notice it, even feels this kid can draw it. Then, this man was stabbed through the body by a steel bar falling from the sky. But his condition at death was exactly the same as in the picture that the little girl drew. A perfectly accurate prediction. This thrilling unintended death quickly caught the attention of the FBI. Through investigation, they learned that this girl had an unusual ability to predict death. It turned out that the picture she drew was to remind that stranger. When the FBI was preparing to investigate further to find out more about the situation, her father suddenly appeared. He was very angry. He asked the female investigator not to touch his daughter anymore. He said, "Kind of people like the people I met a lot. Once you find out that my daughter has a supernatural ability to predict death, you will send her to the laboratory. Which is the syringe, what the needle, do you want my child to become a lab mouse, torture him and die again?" These questions only keep the investigator quiet. She saw the scared little girl's face in front of her, she knew this was not the time to look to her herself. But not long after returning home, she took the initiative to call the investigator. She took out a picture, which depicts the dead lying on the ground. This girl has an extraordinary ability, predicting death. She can draw the condition of the dead by just one look, drawing so well that the condition of the dead is not wrong at all. One day, when the little girl was sitting on the bus, suddenly, she sensed again something, the signal of death, and took out her pen and paper to draw a sketch of a man. Turning his head to look, this is the man in front of him, the uncle who looks like his life has no regrets. He is now only one more picture from death. She quickly completes the picture, she wants to give the picture to that uncle. But that uncle, she just turned around and was nowhere to be found. He stood a second before getting off the car. She quickly got out of the car and chased, but could not see the uncle anymore. She is extremely worried and depressed. "I desperately want to save a life, but I can't afford it. I've tried my best, but this time she didn't give up easily." She went to the FBI investigator. She said that this deadly incident could not be taken lightly. It was a case that would create a fatal disaster on a large area. The FBI staff took great importance. First, they based on the little girl's drawing, performed a comparison on the system, and quickly confirmed the identity of the uncle. But when the investigator found his home, he had been missing for several days. Neighbors told the investigator this uncle recently divorced and even lost custody of the child, but he himself, this unlucky man, will very soon have to die unjustly. The clue to this point is broken. If you want to prevent a disaster from happening, you must firstly investigate the cause and the location where the disaster will occur. Then the FBI turned to a specialist. They decided to perform hypnosis for her. What they deeply cared about was the accidental situation that she predicted if she could find some clues from there. The specialist transferred her to a table with a scientific experimental device, a colorful device, about to be inserted into her brain. Then count 3 numbers, 3, 2, 1. God, this is the moment when the accident happened that she drew on paper. Some were stopping in the air, some were reaching out as if to grab something, some even didn't promptly respond to anything. The little girl paced back and forth in this still landscape, anomalous ability to foresee death. She passed deep hypnosis so she reached this place. She examined the things of this scene. She wanted to find some clues about something to prevent disaster from happening. The little girl walked towards the center of the blast. All that was seen before her eyes dumbfounded her. She had never seen her death in such close range before. "I was very scared," and under the comfort and guidance of the expert she was able to reassure herself. Then she saw a sign written in Latin. "God knows right and wrong, righteousness must be praised." The handsome male investigator, as soon as he heard the statement, guessed that it was the court case. The location of the disaster was the court. The little girl, while in hypnosis, continued to move forward. She saw the uncle she had encountered on the bus before. Still the same face, expression in life with no regrets. But in his hand he was holding something, like a device that could emit radio signals. After hearing that, the male investigator had a new discovery, he said. It is basically not a radio transmitter, but a control device to detonate bombs and mines. It turned out that this uncle was basically not the one who was harmed, but he was the one who caused that disaster, because the judge took the custody of the children, so he embraced the hatred in his heart. put all of this blame on the judge's person. So he tried to blow up this whole court, blasting the judge who took me out of his hands. Thankfully she had the ability to predict this death. While hypnosis provided the FBI with the correct information, the FBI began to send the special police in time to the court. In the parking lot behind a truck, police discovered a car filled with explosives. In another place the uncle found the judge handling his divorce, but this judge did not recognize him. This made the uncle extremely angry. He stole my family, saying he took out a control device. Then pressed the button on the remote, but nothing happens. At this time, the captain of the FBI team came to tell his uncle that the detonator was stopped by the police and there was no need to protest in vain. The danger was finally eliminated. The grandchildren of this case, the little girl who was able to predict death, was suddenly nowhere to be found. When the FBI found her, her face was white and in her eyes, the compassion of the dying person was revealed. Her painting has changed the future, has saved many people, but at the same time she also suffered the adverse effects. Her life is not long. Her father has finally arrived. She gives the picture to her father. The main character in the painting is herself under the gaze of her father. She was happy to leave, she said with a smile to her father. Each person has his or her own values. It is probably the value of her life that can be expected in anticipation of the disaster that saves those lives. The story here is the end. This story is a heartbreaking one. It is an episode taken from the American movie Fringe. Each of us wants to have the power to predict the future. But in fact, all human destiny are gifts given. Since then it soon spoke of its own merits. Compared to calculating every road so it comes sooner. It is not even equal to the current grasp.